Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to today's Kyle Seraphin Show. It is Friday. It is January the 9th, and thanks for being with me. That's Friday makes it a friendly Friday, which means we're going to have Steve Friend of the American Radicals podcast join us in a few moments. Let me just say something. Every single time Steve comes on to talk about something interesting, we have tech issues that come out of nowhere. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to Steve, we're getting prepped, and then all of a sudden he just goes bloop and just disappears. And on my end, I've got kind of an interface program on the side on this screen over here. Gone, just gone. And he's still talking. He doesn't even know. And then he pops back up mid-sentence. And I was like, oh, that was interesting. Wonder what's going on. Did you know I watched his connection go completely to, it goes like red, green, yellow, disappears. So anyway, if we experience tech shenanigans, don't worry. Things will continue. The message, the signal will still get out. I think I need to do like a Serenity / Firefly intro opening because I do feel like the signal's going to get out. What are we talking today? Little information coming from the New York Times that is about the Maduro situation, about the grab, the raid that went and got him. Last night, we kind of talked about it on the call-in show, and there were some pretty cool things about it. I can see two things at once. It can be really neat that our military is able to project force and power into a place. I know those guys are awesome. And so knowing that they go do that is one thing. And this story, actually, I think it's kind of a hit piece on the Trump administration. It actually falls short for me. What it says is that Night Stalkers are epic. They are the best at what they do. But it also does kind of give us a little bit more insight that there is the potential for human casualty, that there are human costs when it comes to doing things like, sending your military anywhere. Anytime you go downrange, it can get really scary and dangerous, and people get hurt. Another thing, we're going to just be fixated on this Minneapolis situation. I think there is a war, and this is going to be my broad and maybe my comprehensive discussion on this. There is a war that is happening both in words, and there's a possibility that it breaks into something even more physical, kinetic. And the war of words is terrorists, and who gets to call who terrorists. And I think this is a bad idea for the Trump administration because terrorism is a thing. We know what it looks like. What it doesn't look like is a suburban mom who's an idiot who decides to do something dangerous and dumb and then ends up orphaning her child. That's not a terrorist to me unless she's strapped with an S-vest. This is a woman who made a poor decision. It happens all the time. I can show you. But the war is terrorists versus neighbors. And what has happened in the last couple days is the political left has embraced this woman. They're doing a Say Her Name campaign. I'm going to show you some evidence of that. And then more importantly, what they're trying to do is they're framing sex offenders and rapists and child sex traffickers and people who are in cartels that are moving things illegally through the United States and people that are otherwise not allowed to be here and have been identity thieves. And at the very best case scenario, they're scamming the American people. At the worst case scenario, they are actually predators on the American people and on the immigrant communities that come here, legally or illegally. They're calling them neighbors. So terrorists versus neighbors is a narrative. It's a war of words, and we're seeing that play out in front of us right now. And I think the left is opening up a really dangerous can of worms because there's a lot of people that are nuts. They have been primed for the potential of violence. None of them are actually prepared for actual violence. We'll show you a little bit of that as well. But the threats are starting to ramp up. The lefties that are thinking that are making really bad decisions. They're saying them out loud. And so, again, if you start playing with the game where people are going to enter the arena and they don't know what the arena actually involves, this is why I'm not like a let's go to civil war kind of guy, because people are going to die. People you love, people that you don't agree with, but you don't want to see bad things happen. That's a terrible place for us to be as a country. And so this is something that I think is truly dangerous. We need to be aware of it as we kind of go out there. You may have to be the bigger person, especially if you're the bigger person with the bigger gun. All right. Before we do that, if you guys don't want to be tracked by all the scumbags that are out there, whether they be government agents, which is a possibility, and there are parts of the government that do the job they're supposed to do, and there are obviously some that are doing things like spying on you. We saw this during the Biden administration. You can talk about big tech, which I think is enemy to all people because they have way too much power, way too much information, and we give it away freely. The corporate data brokers, which we talk about with some of our other sponsors, even cyber criminals, they all want something from you. They all want to get access to this little nugget, this little thing that tracks you every single place you go, this little digital spyware that you carry in your pocket. That's why Silent exists. It allows you to turn it all off. You may not be able to shut it down and take out the battery on the new phones, but what you can do is pop them into a Faraday bag that works, and it blocks wireless signals from cellular to Wi-Fi to Bluetooth to GPS to RFID to NFC, and anything new that they come out. Anything that comes out over a radio wave is going to be able to be blocked. When you have no signal, that means there's no tracking, there's no remote access. That means nobody can follow you with breadcrumbs. This is the same type of technology that special operations teams use, that covert agents use, that people in the FBI use. When I was there, we did the same thing, although half the time we used foil and threw it in an ammo can. It's not a very elegant solution. You want something that looks good, functions good, and does the job. Check out my friends at Silent, slnt.com/KYLE. You'll save 15% with my name at checkout. You'll also get free shipping on qualified orders. This is a good deal. The best thing is that these things actually work. They cost a little bit more money than the cheap Chinesium stuff. The upside is they don't fail like the cheap Chinesium stuff. So if you want to buy once, cry once, and get something that actually does not suck, I will tell you this, I have multiple items of the gear. I've got a waterproof bag. I've got a small waterproof bag. I got the backpacks. We're going to be taking it to SHOT Show with me. I'm going to be rolling around. I'll probably get to sit down again with Aaron, who's at the booth there and is one of the founders of the company. slnt.com/KYLE. 15% off, free shipping on qualified orders. Link in the show description. Let's get to it. Here we go. I almost ran out of breath doing that. I do get amped up about gear. If you guys were looking at me through like a little window, if you're doing the Truman Show into the Kyle Seraphin household, like what you would basically see is about 30% of my day is prepping or considering or staging or manipulating gear. Even yesterday, we had a really positive experience from the folks over at gpnvg.com, GP Night Vision. And I had this like reach out to them. I'm like, hey guys, you guys sent me the wrong cable, but you upgraded my battery kit. You gave me a battery kit that was twice as expensive, and you didn't charge me for it, but you sent me the wrong cable. Do you want me to buy a cable? Like, how do you want to handle this? And they said, no, we're going to send you the cable, on us, our bad, no big deal. They sent it out. It got there next day air. So I got it yesterday and put that on, was able to use the battery pack, which is super nice. And they said, just tell your friends. So I'm telling my friends, if you guys are in the night vision industry, or if you're in the night vision market and you're thinking about buying something, check out the guys at GPNVG. They're not paying me for that. That's just like good customer service equals I like what you guys are all about. All right, we're going to bring on that one guy. I can't remember his name, but I think that he has a theme music, and so let's bring that theme music to bear right now. This reminds me who he is. There he is. What's up, buddy?
Not much. You are the gear guy, right? I mean, you like to pretend that you're Bodie from Point Break, maybe Agent Mueller from the X-Files, but really you're Police Academy Tackleberry, right?
It's not the first time I've been called Tackleberry, not even close. So that's not exclusive here to you. But yeah, that's a thing. I do. I'm a geardo. We call it a gear queer, right? Or like whatever it is. Like yeah. Did you get my belt that I sent you?
I did. And I think I remarked to you that if you want to get into another side hustle, you could just assemble belts and then sell them on the side and do pretty well for yourself, I think. It's pretty sleek.
When I was working for the Bureau, I would build, battle belt type things, or I'd build like whatever you call it, like first line gear. And I'd get them all set up with whatever I thought like the most high speed version was. And then one of my partners, one of my SOG buddies who wanted to have like something quick and easy, like a grab belt and be able to go, they'd be like, hey bro, I'll just buy that off you. Just tell me what you paid for it. And I didn't make any money on it. I would just sell it to them for like what I paid. And then I would turn around and build another one. And so I have probably like 3 or 4 of those. That one was slightly too small for me. I got it because it was a good deal. And now you have it. So
yeah, I'm grateful. I mean, I can never
Steve's
find
got a smaller
belt
waist than me, guys. What is your waist size? 31?
31, which means that it's always too tight or too loose.
That's right. I'm a 32, and so it was just a little bit like my hip bones don't actually fit into the darn thing. So anyway, yeah, now you're hooked up. Okay, let's do story, shall we? Let's do the story of the Maduro raid first. Then we're gonna get into all the sort of like shame and the stuff that's happening and the narrative war, which I think is fun. But this story I thought was really good. And I haven't asked you what you thought about invading Venezuela or taking over Venezuela, but this is a story from the New York Times. This was meant as a hit piece as far as I could tell. Eric Schmidt, Greg Joffe, they wrote a close call for U.S. commandos and an emboldened Trump as a damaged U.S. helicopter struggled to stay aloft over Venezuela's capital. The success of the entire operation hung in the balance. That sounds like a great little tagline for a movie or something like that. And then you scroll down here, and so we just kind of read the story. By the way, you can translate it into Spanish and then whatever these gibberish characters are. I'm going to guess one of them that's simplified Chinese, and that's traditional Chinese. If you want to read the New York Times in Chinese, you can do that. So that's not... It's nice to see that they've really sold out to our overlords.
No Somali, Jacob Fry would be very upset.
Jacob Fry would be upset about that. Why? Because he's Somali?
I think, isn't he like the president of Little Mogadishu?
I think he's the president. Yeah, he's the mayor of Somalia.
Maaga Egawa Jacob Fry.
Oh, we'll get back to Jacob Fry.
Kiss on my ass, Jacob Fry.
Someone said he sounds like one of the Hutts in the Star Wars movies.
It's a good call.
That guy's such a goofy dude. He's obviously trying to make a stab at being something big. So anyway, all right. President Trump described the operation to capture President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela as perfectly executed and a display of American military power. But Mr. Trump's account of the audacious raid left out key details that underscored the risk U.S. troops faced when they approached Mr. Maduro's fortified compound and how close the high-stakes operation came to a turn for the worst. I think most of us that know anything about military operations realize that this was probably a reality. When they said nobody was killed, I was like, you didn't say nobody got hurt. That means I bet you some dudes got injured. That's just what happens. I mean, you're doing this at 11. You're turning the dial all the way past where it's supposed to be safe, and you're going into a foreign nation. So anyway, in the early hours of Saturday morning, U.S. Army helicopters skimmed 100 feet above the sea, and then over Caracas, Venezuela's capital, racing towards their target. Stealthy path had been cleared by American cyber attacks that darkened the city. Radar evading U.S. fighter jets then pounded the Russian-built air defenses. Initially, the helicopters carrying dozens of Army Delta Force commandos flew undetected. But as they approached his lair, it's Nicolas Maduro's lair. You know you're a villain if you have a lair, I think. Yeah. The aircraft came under fire and shot back. The first helicopter in the assault, a giant twin-rotor MH-47 Chinook, was hit but remained flyable. And the flight leader, who also planned the mission, was piloting that Chinook, was struck 3 times in the leg, says current and former U.S. Army officials who spoke on condition of anonymity discussing these sensitive matters. And as the damaged helicopter struggled to stay aloft and deliver its troops, the success of the entire operation, called Absolute Resolve, involving more than 150 aircraft launched from 20 different land and sea bases, hung in the balance. Apparently, this guy took 3 rounds to the leg. He's a Night Stalker, and he did what Night Stalkers do, which is they don't quit. And they dominate the sky. And that guy did that. Anyway, all of that tells me that there's some serious badasses that were involved in this. And so that's kind of where I've always struggled. I'm like, yeah, I want to cheer for badass things. I do. I also don't want you to tell me that we're not going to go to war. Those things are totally separate from me. I don't want you to violate what you said. Did you have an instinct on what you liked about that or what you didn't from what you heard?
I think I kind of share your sentiment about massive amounts of respect for the capability of the people being involved. I'm reading a book right now about the Operation Desert Storm. I mean, so you're talking 30 plus years ago and how they just went in and completely dominated, and they were expecting to take a significant number of casualties and they were freaking out about it. And that obviously didn't happen in that initial surge that happened. I think it's something similar here. But actually, the one factoid that I heard spoken about that got me really concerned was when they talked about how it was aircraft from 20 different bases in the region that were involved in this. That's a lot. That makes me think that, oh, this is going to be really successful. The outcome is already predetermined, and everybody wants to be able to get a gold star, a promotion, a ribbon, and we got to spread the wealth around, which to me means that it's not as quite as a it's a little bit disingenuous as far as the authenticity of the actual operation.
I keep bouncing back and forth with this. There are some things that it'd be nice if we could just cheer on, and it'd be nice if we could just be like, this was, my issue is always that it was not a constitutional thing. And the War Powers Act, and look, this is not the fault of this president. That's the other thing that's also worth pointing out. So there's this nuance that continues to play in my head, which I say, just because there's a problem doesn't mean that this team created it, doesn't mean that even the people before them created it. I don't even think it was Obama's problem. I think that when Congress started saying we're no longer willing to do our job, we're actually terrified of doing the thing that we're meant to do, which is declare war, then you're going to end up in this scenario where you've ceded your capabilities. They did it in the Administrative Procedures Act. They're like, making laws is hard. What if we just funded agencies and then they made their own laws? What could go wrong? And that's how you end up with the ATF making all these crazy ideas, the EPA getting out of control. And so this War Powers Act idea, it's the same idea for me. It's ceding your authority, and there's nothing that's supposed to be good about our constitutional structure, handing over things that are actually listed in your responsibilities.
Shortcutting the processes in order to expedite, in order to avoid all responsibility is actually going to get you on the back end. Because if there's a legitimate case for us to go and do this as some sort of extraordinary rendition of a foreign leader, you have to make that case to Congress in order for them to declare war. Ergo, the message would get out to the American people of what are we really doing, or at least something closer to what the real reason is. There's always a real reason and the right reason, and they're going to give you the right reason. But now they've actually not had that opportunity because they have kind of just spun and said, hey, what can I put in a tweet that's going to get most of the base to say, oh, okay, MAGA, 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 we love America, this is great. And they're not actually explaining the decision to actually go down there, which may or may not be legitimate reason. But by bringing that request to go to war to Congress, those issues would have to be fleshed out, and we get a greater overall understanding of what the actual mission is.
Yeah, and honestly, they could declare something and then not do anything about it for a while, which is the other piece of it. I don't know. It's just, we're living in a world where the news moves so fast. It used to be you could probably go and meet and declare war and nobody would know because it was in a room and there was no such thing as C-SPAN. So as things change, there's maybe this requirement to have closed door sessions or something of Congress. But I don't know. We haven't caught up with that. And what we've seen is they just said, this is scary. Somebody in Congress could leak the plan. What does that say about people who we're electing? Maybe we should actually tighten up the restrictions on who can serve in office. That may be a big piece of it, too. That may actually go where we're going to talk about now, that people seem to have the opposite of interests. They don't seem to care if people get hurt in the United States and they're not going to serve their constituents well, or shall we say their neighbors, which is the sort of narrative fight that's going on. I got another story that I wanted to touch on, which is the Brian Cole pipe bomber thing. And so let's punch into that for just a second here. That's not the right screen. This is the screen that I'm looking for. The defense for Brian Cole Jr. continues to, I think, surprise the government and maybe even scare the government. Because I'm fairly confident, maybe you have the same feeling, that DOJ did not expect resistance with this guy. Do you get that impression from anything that you've read so far and talking to Joe and talking to Steve Baker?
I've gotten that as well as something else. I'll let you continue, but I've got another impression from the defense that might not necessarily be good for what we would like to have come out. And that is that they're going to zealously represent Brian Cole Jr. in his best interests, which might not necessarily require them to prove that Shawnee Kirkhoff is the pipe bomber, just that Brian Cole isn't. So we might not get total satisfaction, but I am glad that they are nonetheless fighting on his behalf and not just trying to get some sort of a deal, case closed, and move on here.
Right. So for people to understand, and I said this on Alex Jones the other day, and I misspoke. There's two guys that have come into the legal team. One of them's name is Alex Little, and Alex is friendly with someone that Steve and I both know in the background, and I don't want to say because I don't want to burn that connection, whatever. But at the end of the day, Alex also apparently was an AUSA for one of my friends who's now a retired federal agent. And the agent told me that he's an absolute pit bull, that he's just sharp and capable. And so he came and did this. The other guy from his firm is Zach Lawson. And I said Josh Lawson on InfoWars yesterday, so I'll correct myself, and sorry about that. But these two guys have come in and they've taken what was kind of a lackluster defense posture and they've turned it into a hyper-aggressive knife in the back of the government at any turn. And it's making me wonder, and I'm going to show you guys why I think this. It's making me wonder if DOJ did this intentionally to spike the ball. And that's actually a really big deal. There are two advantages for DOJ spiking the ball on this case and intentionally losing. Number one would be that you're going to see the discrediting of Pam Bondi, right? Of Kash Patel, of Dan Bongino, who can do nothing about it at this point, Janine Pirro, and maybe Darren Cole or Cox, who's at Washington field office. But anybody that was in that little circle jerk victory lap that they took when they named him, they would all have a lot of egg on their face if DOJ lost this case aggressively. Yes?
Yes. I mean, they fully own it. at this point. There's public record of them and video footage of them hurting themselves in the shoulder, patting themselves in the back.
I heard it was his elbow. I don't know if you...
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not really important or anything. I don't know why anybody cares, but the first thing I'm going to talk about before I become the gatekeeper of what is and what is not conservative speak, let me tell you, it was my elbow, in fact.
So we're taking a little pot shot here at Dan Bongino coming on the podcast
He's
the other
not
day.
listening. He's not on the 7th floor anymore. It's fine.
So the craziest thing was I had to watch that. First of all, I had a bunch of like reporters come up. They're like, "Did you hear this?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to watch that. I don't have any interest." So we go back and I watched the thing, and I watched it in like 1.5 or 1.75 so I can get through it. And the first thing that he brought up, he's been like quote unquote muzzled, and he can't do like regular talking for 9 months. It's an eternity, I'm sure. It would feel like a long time away from a podcast if you're used to doing podcasts.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he's like a heroin addict who hasn't found a methadone clinic, and now he's just going to OD on the exposure to the microphone.
He runs back in, and the first thing he wants to talk about, of all the things that he could do, he brings up that the New York Times falsely covered the story in March of 2025 that he hurt his shoulder because in reality, he actually hurt his elbow. And I'm like, dude, what kind of narcissistic, like move on from that. People have said so many weird things about me that you just move on. You're like, it's so irrelevant. Why address it? There's somebody out there that keeps posting pictures of me with Jim Comey receiving my credentials. And I'm like, that's a historical event that happened. I posted that picture. You clowns, where do you think you got that? That's like that picture existed only in my house until I gave it to you. I don't care. And they're like, look how short you are. I'm like, Jim Comey is like 7'12". The dude is enormous. He's this like freaking giant. I don't care. And I'm 5'8". Like I've always been 5'8". Anyway, so it's kind of funny that he went out there and he wanted to go and fix that thing. But a couple of things that Dan said, which are actually going to come back to this. He was really proud of the pipe bomber thing. He said exactly the same story on the podcast that he said when he was doing the press conference. And that's problematic. And that's going to bring us, I think, where we can talk about this case here. Because again, if DOJ is spiking this intentionally, and there's some really weird stuff they did that makes me think it, here we go. I don't know why people are telling me 7'12" is 8 feet. I know that. That's the joke. Come on.
If you explain the joke, it's not funny. Come on, Seraphins.
Oh, my chat is ruining it. My chat is ruining my semi-cleverness. All right. So this is a response. This was filed day before yesterday. And it's Brian Cole Jr. Submits this memorandum in response to the court's January 6th filing, an order requiring the defendant to show cause why his emergency motion for the review of magistrate order should not be denied as moot. And so there's this back and forth. And basically, there are things that you can roll over on and not submit a motion or not submit a response. But these guys are fighting every single piece. And what they say is that the motion that they've asked for emergency review of the magistrate order, which was saying whether or not the Superior Court indictment actually holds and whether they could do it. They've gone out there and got a superseding indictment. The indictment is very lackluster. It's just two things. It's the same exact charges. There's literally nothing to cover in that particular document. What do you think? Except that the two charges, one is transporting explosives and the other one is actually the use of explosives to destroy a building or whatever. These are all 18 USC 844 variations and violations. So the court still can grant effective release because he should be immediately released from custody is their argument. The legal basis is very straightforward. Federal law requires the government to either hold a preliminary hearing, which they didn't do and they'd avoided, or obtain a valid federal indictment on by December the 30th, 2025, which they didn't do. That was the deadline that was extended by consent, and then they didn't do it. And they just say it right here. The government did neither. When that deadline passed without compliance, the statute's mandatory remedy attached. Mr. Cole, quote, shall be discharged from custody or from the requirement of bail or from any other condition of release. So they're telling the government, let our guy go. And on top of it, they actually acknowledge, yeah, you could come back and arrest him later or take him back into custody. That may be the case, but every hour that you do not comply with this mandatory provision of the statute shall be discharged from custody. Now you're in violation and you are actually doing, irreparable harm to the man. And every hour is worse. And I tend to agree with that. That's kind of fun. And then they sneak this thing in. So did you read this yesterday from Joe Hanneman?
Yeah. And just to add a little bit of flavor
Put your thoughts
to that,
on as I scroll down slowly.
It seems to me that DOJ and the federal judges are each doing what Congress has done via the Administrative Procedures Act. And they both want to just shirk their responsibilities and to keep punting it back and forth to each other because they don't want to be the ones to let this guy off the hook, because ultimately they know they're going to have to, and they don't want to be blamed for it. So the judges are extending it and the DOJ is extending it, and nobody wants to actually own it. Somebody's eventually going to have to own it, and I think it's going to fall back on the Department of Justice.
Read this little line here, because this is what I was looking for. There's some little fun stuff in here.
Oh, it's very small on my screen, my friend.
Oh,
I got
no.
a whole new setup here. Oh, wait, I got it fixed. The
feel like you can do it.
statute requires release just as much now as it did a week ago, and nothing about the new indictment changes that.
So what we're seeing, though, and this is relevant, is that they're not just rolling over on stuff, knowing that he will be rearrested or that he will be redetained. Yeah. They're still fighting it. They're fighting every single thing, to the point where when I was talking to a reporter yesterday, the statement was, if anything bad ever happens to me in the federal system, I'm going to hire Alex Little. And I told that to Steve Baker, and we both kind of chuckled, and he was like, right? This guy and his firm and Lawson behind him, and maybe some of the others that are working there that are on their legal team, are aggressively pursuing this. So they go on and they kind of justify the reason, then they give you the background, and then you kind of scroll through and you're like, okay, yeah, the background happened. We know the timeline. Essentially, he was arrested on the 4th. They did not seek a federal indictment. They panicked, realizing that they were going to end up having to show up and do a preliminary hearing, which they wanted to avoid at all costs. They went and got a superior court indictment, which doesn't generally stand. There's ongoing litigation. There's ongoing question in the appeal circuit, whether or not that actually holds. And then you keep rolling down, and then they start talking about mootness and whether or not the court can actually provide any effective release, whatever. They say that the statute says that he shall be discharged. They're hammering home this point. And then as you keep going, and you're like, okay, fine. This is this is all legal backing. This is how these motions work. If you guys have never looked at them, they just give you here's the statute, here's some case law, here's some precedent, here's some other things to consider, here's some linguistic kind of shading. This is what attorneys do. This is where they make their money. They do draft after draft after draft to fit it inside the 10-page limit and all this other kind of stuff. But then you keep rolling down. I'm going to just slowly show you, this is the volume of what's going on. 7, page 8, and then you end up at this little footnote, and the footnote cannot be discarded. You cannot not read the footnote, because he throws a dagger as he's walking out the door with this one. And again, these are the attorneys here that I was telling you about. So Little, along with Litzen PLLC, they're out of Nashville, and they've been crushing this thing. Here's the footnote, and this is where it gets wild. Even if the release issue were moot, and it is not. I love these phrases, by the way. Attorneys do this. They say, even if you don't agree with us, but you should, right? Okay. The court, nevertheless, will have to determine the validity of the purported, quote unquote, indictment. They're even going to put indictment in air quotes here, obtained in the DC Superior Court at some point during this litigation. They're bringing up the fact that there was a procedural error done by DOJ. And this is where I wonder if they're spiking the ball. And this is why. This is true because the January 6th indictment, which was the federal indictment, the superseding version that allowed it to be in the right area, contains at least one charge that has a 5-year statute of limitations. And that period expired before the indictment was obtained by the federal grand jury. I will leave this on the screen for people. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit just to make it so clear that you guys can read it. Guys, they're pointing out that of the 2 charges that DOJ has, one of those charges has a 5-year statute, and it ran out a few hours before they got the January 6th indictment, because these events happened on January the 5th, as the government argues. This stuff starts getting really weird. And by the way, Bongino made some reference to this in his little podcast, talking about, we got 2 problems here. You know, Jim Comey, we can't really go after him. We can't go after Letitia James because we're talking about statute of limitations. At the same time as he was telling everyone, just patience, wait, just let us develop, let us cook. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, the statute of limitations might actually achieve the idea that I was initially proffering, that the defense might come out and say that the January 6th pardon that Donald Trump issued on day 1 in office applied to Brian Cole. Ergo, that darn Judge Bo Asberg, he said the pardon applied. We got our man. We can't do anything about it. Case closed. And sorry about that, America. Let's just blame Judge Bo Asberg. This kind of achieves the exact same thing.
Do you call Bo Asberg? Is that just...
Yeah, it's a literary flourish.
Carry on.
But similarly here, can the DOJ now say, hey, look, it was the Christopher Wray FBI. They screwed us because they took so long to find out the guy who used his own credit card, car, and cell phone and didn't change any pattern of life for 5 years and yet eluded the agency during his tenure. It's not really our fault. We really needed Dan Bongino to get up there and give the extra motivation and say, you're going to bring me this guy. And if that had happened 4 years ago, it wouldn't have been an issue. But now we have a statute of limitations issue. We got our man. Case closed. No further commentary necessary about Shawnee Kirkhoff, who's currently in the employ of the federal government, collecting a paycheck from the taxpayer who dropped the pipe bombs 5 years ago.
All right. Very simply, folks, this is what's going to be at stake. The judge is going to have to make a ruling on whether or not the original indictment stands and holds, whether it has any validity whatsoever, because based on that ruling, we're going to determine whether or not we have one charge of placing the bombs at the time, or the two charges, which involve the transportation and then the placement. By the way, some of these charges could have been a lot stronger, and this is another reason why I wonder if they're actually trying to spike the ball, because there are charges you could do under 922, 18 U.S.C. 922, which is going to be like your destructive devices and so on. Those are like national firearms things, possessing an unregistered destructive device, use of an unregistered destructive device, et cetera, et cetera. So there are things that could have been charged more, and some of those have 10-year limits. The other thing is you don't have to worry about stuff that has anything to do with national security, which means if you were talking about, I don't know, like a proposed coup or some sort of involvement that is far more drastic than some guy randomly was upset one day, the terrorism charges also give you the ability to extend it to 10 years. So you don't lose charges. This is why it's really interesting to me that this is the way they charged it. They made these procedural stupidity. Like, how dumb were they that they waited until the 6th? Knowing that it was going to pass the statute of limitations? You're basically telling us that you're either incompetent or you're deliberately doing something that is nefarious. And the upside for the deep state, I think, equals deep state, administrative state. The long-term DOJ, let's call it that, means two things. The first part is that you get to embarrass the current administration because they've made a big deal out of it. And the second piece of it that's really critical is that potentially you get to cover up for your person. You get to cover up for the person that actually was involved in this. And it is the ongoing supposition of this podcast that Brian Cole Jr. did not do these things, could not have done these things. That is shared by neighbors, that is shared by friends, that is getting more and more shared by reporters that were in the courtroom. You guys heard people that came on this show the other day. It doesn't matter whether they're left or right. People that are honest and looking at it go, that's not how that guy walks. By the way, that guy doesn't wear a bra. It doesn't make any sense, and the story doesn't line up as it's being pitched to us, so it makes you wonder what the DOJ is doing. And it's going to be very, very bad for the Bongino brand, who came out as the MAGA police yesterday, or a couple days ago, saying he was going to attack the black pillars, which I think he's not even using the pill terms correctly. Am I wrong about this?
I don't know if maybe he's just new to that term. And he just has embraced it recently. It's like when you say a word 3 times, then you own that word. Maybe he's trying to do that and just paint with a broad brush anybody. I really respect the fact that he spent 6 to 8 months in the employ of the federal government. And now he's determined that he's the arbiter of right think and wrong think. It's very FBI of him.
That is very FBI of him. They got to him. I got more evidence they got to him as well, because he started retweeting my former boss. And there's something kind of funny about all that for those of you who've been following the stupid online drama. But we'll get to that in a minute. It's kind of a closing thought. It's not really that important. Let me ask you to like our video. We were on the top 50 as usual on Rumble, which means even though we're a very small podcast there comparatively, you guys make us overperform. We punch way above weight because you guys hit the like button. YouTube, you guys are awesome at that. Our watchers and our viewers over on YouTube outperform the Rumble by quite a bit. You guys are well trained for the like thing, so I appreciate you guys doing that. If you're on X, consider watching us on a monetized platform, only because the views actually count for something. I can't use X views. They just don't do anything. But I do appreciate all of you guys watching, listening, sharing with a friend. Follow Real Steve Friend, that's on X. You can follow him on YouTube. He'll tell you the American Radicals coming up shortly. And if you're listening and you're not seeing, there are some things that are worth reading. There are some things for seeing with your own eyes. And you can do that over at Spotify. So the easiest way to do it is go to KyleSeraphinShow.com. There's always a link in the show description if you guys are looking for that. No big deal here. Let's pivot. Oh, I caught Steve looking off camera. Yeah. Let's pivot. You would see that if you were watching on Spotify, by the way. Let's pivot over to the sort of story of of Minneapolis, the battle for Minneapolis. Was there a song about the Battle of Minneapolis at one point?
I think there was a video, a film about the St. George Floyd riots.
St. George Floyd. Yeah. Okay. So we're there. I'm going to bring up Axios. And the reason why is because I have it on pretty good authority that Donald Trump reads Axios every morning.
Bullet points. Yeah. It's like the USA Today of the internet.
This is the Axios story. Democrats, furious Democrats by you, threaten government shutdown after the Minneapolis shooting. And there are some people that look like they are doing government shutdowny things. They're shutting down roads. That's not what government shutdown looks like. Rank and file Democrats are starting to make serious noise about the threat of government shutdown to force substantive changes at ICE. And their big issue with ICE is it's quote unquote arresting our neighbors. Steve, can you tell me about some of your neighbors that are illegal aliens, sex traffickers, and gang members? Because I want to know. I just want to know.
I can't say that I have any of those because...
Yes, you do. Surely you do.
I mean, I live in the land of milk and honey, Florida, where we're kind of down to turn those folks in.
That's true. You guys are anti-crime. Would you say that?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we do have a couple of problems, problematic sheriffs, even mine, who's kind of a red flag guy. Mm-hmm. But with the exception of like Broward County or some of these other deep blue areas like around the Orlando area, we're pretty much all about law and order. We love the police down in Florida.
Chuck Schumer said there's not going to be a shutdown, so this may be fake news despite the headline. And the House Minority Leader said that they should be using the appropriations process to constrain ICE, but they're really focused on trying to pay for everybody's health care with tax credits, aka making the Affordable Care Act affordable with other people's money. So that's good to know.
Obamacare's base now, I forgot.
That's right. Now, the deal is the anti-crime question comes up because if you're out there supporting people that seem like they're criminals, at the very least, they have to be doing identity theft to be able to work in this country. The very most, some of them are, abusing children and sex trafficking and moving drugs and causing people's deaths. So that doesn't seem very anti-crime, but that is not the position that they're going to put forward. Always frame yourself as the good guy. And by the way, that's what this narrative battle is all about. Am I the good guy? And what I want people to listen to before we jump up with Jacob Frey, the mayor of Somalia, I want you to know that the things he's talking about are almost exclusively Christian values. And my wife honed in on this morning as we were talking. She was like, do you hear their language? They're doing a narrative war, but they're also trying to always couch things in the language of Christianity, even though these people despise Christianity. I find that fascinating. Anyway, they're anti-crime.
And so, as Democrats, we got to be very clear-eyed. We are anti-crime. Mm-hmm. We are pro-safety. We're also pro-abiding by the Constitution, which this administration is not doing.
Why do they only go to the Constitution whenever it means that they can use it for resistance?
Because their principles are, gosh, who made this case? Was it Tolkien? I don't know, maybe C.S. Lewis. Somebody made the case that when you are in power, I will use your values against you. And when I'm in power, it's boot to throat. So
this is, that's kind of a Saul Alinsky type thing, if nothing else. It's like you hold the other side to their own principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm my brother's keeper. And they're going to make the allusion to the neighbor. Those are Christian terminology, we'll say. They're not really well versed in it. They're like a third-year Spanish student on vacation in Cancun, Mexico for spring break. Like they can't speak totally fluently, but they can do enough to order themselves some agua.
It's transactional.
They habla.
Just enough. Third-year Spanish students should probably know more Spanish to get around than I do. Then again, I took 3 years of Spanish and I was awful. It's all about this. But listen, if we were doing something illegal, like, I don't know, funneling money into some sort of organization that was involved in some sort of like illegal protest, we're going to create the rule that you're allowed to do legal observing. I'm going to get your feelings on the idea of the American right to do legal observation of law enforcement options in a moment. And I've got some fun evidence. But first, I just want you to know, don't ask me how these people are getting organized or paid, because I'm not willing to say. This is like taking the fifth in front of Jen Psaki.
We just showed some images of what appear to be large-scale peaceful protests tonight. In response, we have reporters on the ground who, of course, covering them. Tell us what the scale of those are. What are you hearing about what's happening on the ground? How did they originate?
Well, look, I won't speak to the work that those that have been organizing is doing right now. I won't speak to that. What I will say is there is a broad message that is going out, and that message is pretty clear, which is don't take the bait. We'll stand up for justice. We'll stand up for what is right. And we also recognize what the Trump administration is trying to do here, because it appears that they wanted a moment like this.
It does appear like they want that moment. You probably had a hard time understanding what he was saying, Steve, if I had to guess.
Well, he wasn't going to speak to the, as we're supposed to infer, perfectly legal, constitutionally protected activity that is done in public for public awareness, but he's not going to speak to that, right?
We can't really speak to that, at least not in a way that you would understand. You probably wouldn't get it, so maybe I'll just give it to the audience where it belongs.
Maaga Egawa Jacob Fry, Doke Magalada, Minneapolis. Damaan, Shaabka Somaliyed, Kayamid, Mogadishu, Getaway.
My favorite is when he says Mogadishu. I don't know why I like that so much, because I don't know what he's saying either.
Kisamaasa, Jacob Fry.
Hold on one second.
Maaga Egawa Jacob Fry.
The awkwardness, yeah, the gun to the head sort of thing. Who's off camera? They're going like, let's go, dude. Start reading the teleprompter.
My question is, in all earnestness, why are they excluding the deaf from that experience? Why don't they have somebody signing in Somali next to him?
Dude, yeah. And how do you sign in Somali? Is there a sign language? That would be difficult. So he said the other day, get the F out. That was the title of yesterday's program. Get the F out of Mogadishu, aka Minneapolis. And this was the clip that he went on to defend it. And I'm going to kind of work through this argument here in clips. So a lot of times I bring video clips as my evidence of what I think is happening right now. We're going to get to the Christian observation, but we're also seeing this broader movement of say her name. They're trying to make Renee Good a thing.
That's not going to work.
It's not going to work, and I'll show you why. Because white ladies feel guilty crying for other white ladies, which is a really, really weird thing. Here we go.
I've seen a lot of Republicans here in Washington criticizing those comments, saying that you're escalating tensions with that. Can you respond to them, and what do you say to them tonight, people who criticize those comments?
I'm so sorry if I offended their Disney princess ears, but here's the thing. If we're talking about what's inflammatory, on the one hand, you got someone who dropped an F-bomb, and on the other hand, you got someone who killed somebody else. F-bomb, killing somebody. I think the more inflammatory action is killing somebody. And so...
no, that can't be true, because I was told that words are violence.
Mm-hmm. Violence is speech.
And if you use your speech in a violent way, then you can erase people by denying that they exist. So that's the same as killing them. It's not good. They're making this argument here. The other argument is the legitimacy of the shot. So what you do is you walk out your mouthpieces who know nothing. They quote their anonymous friend sources. Does anyone think that Joe Scarborough has a bunch of big city cops calling him? He might, but they're all elected officials. I'll show you what they look like. Is Joe Scarborough getting, inside tips on whether or not this was a legal shoot or not?
Joe Scarborough allegedly went to a college in the South, I think University of Alabama, and I still doubt he's ever touched a firearm.
It seems likely. This is the manly men giving you the real truth. This is what happens if you go to MS Now. You will get that there are anonymous police officers reaching out autonomously. I actually don't disbelieve this, because I saw an FBI agent say the same thing yesterday.
And then Bill Lumberg,
the guy the guy with the nipples that were in his he was wearing the hoodie with the nipples showing, which makes you get free drinks everywhere you go if you go to a gay bar. He's standing there holding a coffee mug, doing the Lumberg, and he was like, I was an FBI firearms instructor. By the way, we reached out to an FBI firearms instructor that had the same exact tenure and overlap of career in Mark Kreider. And I was like, here's this guy, and his name's like Lazarus. And he's like, dude, I've never seen that guy. And I went to all the firearms events, and I trained at Quantico, and I trained firearms instructors at Quantico to become firearms instructor. I've never seen that guy.
Are you saying we shouldn't believe everything we read on the internet? I thought that was an old Abe Lincoln quote.
That is an Abe Lincoln quote. Yeah, that's correct. Anyway, here's Joe Scarborough telling you this is the game. Quoting my sources, you know that it's legit, because you know that I know big city cops. I don't know that big city cops are even the people I would trust to do like regular law enforcement. They seem really political.
I have been bombarded with texts from police officers, many of them big city cops. You say, Joe, this isn't a close call. You all are being way too careful here. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's our job, to be very careful. And I am thankful that Tom Homan said what he said, which is let's have the investigation. But it is the opinion of most police officers here that this guy that fired the first shot, which they say goes against
regulations.
All regulations. He should not have stood in front of the car. And then firing at point blank range on the side 2 times. All the cops say, if this had happened in our police department, then anyone who did this would be in jail. And
first of all, he may not be wrong because police departments are not federal. That's part one. The biggest thing I love is that it went against all regulations. I like when Mika jumps in because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Excuse my language. This is so dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's not regulations. It's deadly force policy and case law. So go ahead, Steve. Hit it.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that the Department of Justice, we can only speak to that. I presume that the Department of Homeland Security has something very similar, has listed in operations that FD 888 that Julie Kelly and Dan Bongino said that there was a reason that when they went to Mar-a-Lago, it was an assassination attempt. The deadly force policy that's listed in there says that agents or officers from other departments should adhere to their own agencies' policies as it pertains to deadly force, because the federal policy tends to be a little bit more broad and you could be a little bit more narrow. And I like how he tried to conflate Joe Scarborough, against all regulations, the officer who fired the first shot, implying that the first shot was a violation of regulation, when actually just putting yourself in front of a vehicle might have been, but we don't know that even at this point.
Well, and it's not universal that it's people on the left that say that. I guess Joe would probably claim that he's on the right, but we know otherwise. It's not universal. In fact, it's just people that are not educated. So I had a really nice comment from a current Leo reach out to me and say, I heard your explanation yesterday. I spent 30 minutes talking about this because I think you people have to understand the case law, Graham v. Connor. You have to understand the Nagel decision. Actually, I've got a little piece on here that we could discuss. But federal supremacy and officer immunity, this is well explained. This is at casemine.com. So I'll put this in the show notes if you guys want to read about it. We'll talk about it briefly. But end of the day, this is ongoing. This is established since the 1890s, so this is not a new thing that if you're a federal agent, you have a very different experience than being a local cop. So that may be the case, that local cops would say otherwise. But it's not exclusive to the right. I'm sorry, exclusive to the left being wrong about what the shooting was. And I'm going to play you something, a woman who I agree with in the area where she's an expert, but this is a good reminder that sometimes when you get out of your lane, you say dumb things. I'm sure I'm guilty of it as well if I step out of my lane. I don't need to hear what Lila Rose has to say about shooting, because I think she's touched a gun about as often as Joe Scarborough has. Ready?
Said it.
Okay, here we go.
But I do think it's up for debate still. Was this woman a violent protester, or was she just trying to get out of there in her car? I think that's still the question that's at hand. That needs to be a debate. Always Forever says, the thing is, they could have shot at the tires. They are trained to avoid killing citizens. She was trying to get away. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And the law enforcement, ICE, should be trained to avoid killing people. That is not their job to kill people. Their job is to protect the peace, enforce the law, obviously practice self-defense when needed, but it's not to just go out and kill people. So I think, the jury's still out on this one. There's going to be more analysis, forensic analysis that's going to be done of this case, but I think it's a tragedy all in all, and a call for prayer, as well as what we,
with as little respect as possible, Lila Rose is retarded. Okay, I invited
her. I invited her to Texas. We have a range where we could bring a vehicle out, and I invited her to shoot tires with me in Texas if she wants to join me. I think they've got better budget. I think it'd be a great experience for her to learn that if you are out to save babies from abortion, which is an incredibly good thing to do, and I think that is a morally righteous cause, maybe STFU when it comes to talking about use of force in law enforcement, and don't tell me what the mission of ICE is, because nothing that she said had anything to do with the mission of ICE.
That is Billy Madison. Everything you just said is completely wrong. We're all dumber for having heard it. I could take it down piece by piece. So let me see, you're going to hold these contradicting ideas in your head, and this is more of a commentary on the leftists and the right, that the cops are simultaneously like rubes and morons and incompetent jerks, and yet they're all sharpshooters who can hit the pinky nail on somebody if they needed to. So that's just an expectation that people have because they watch too much TV and movies. That's not possible. Police officers, federal agents, anybody in law enforcement, if you're at a point where you're using deadly force, you are taught and trained to shoot at the threat, to stop the threat. It's not shoot to kill. It's not shoot to injure. It's not shoot to maim. You shoot to stop the threat. Now, that happens to coincide with turning off the central nervous system or shooting center mass, which might take a little bit longer. But just shooting out the tires, if your actual risk, if your concern is for public safety and loss of life, do you think that there might be further risk of loss of life if you put a speeding vehicle on ice out of control without the ability to brake because it has no tires, and now an impaired driver who's going to struck into the innocent people? Everything that she said is wrong. We're all dumber for having heard it.
100%. Steve Crowder did it yesterday. I saw the videos that you guys all did. If those of you who are watching, he did it on his program. There's a couple clips that are out there on the internet as well. And he basically said there's no chance you could even see the tires, let alone decide to shoot it if you're a couple feet off the bumper. Do it on a bigger vehicle. You'll find out it's even worse. They're shrouded. If you're dealing with a vehicle like mine, there's going to be like a cow catcher in front and or a ranch hand grill, and that's not going to make it any easier. So end of the day, we're dealing with stupidity, but we are dealing with feelings, and that's the real thing. It feels bad to see someone, which is how you end up getting people emotionally to commit to ICE are terrorists, rest in power, she was murdered. These are all emotionally charged words, and it goes to the also piece where you have to talk about the language war. They're fighting over who gets to be the terrorist. Are the terrorists the women who are driving the cars at ICE? No. Are the terrorists the ICE agents who are doing the federally mandated job that is funded by Congress to go get rid of illegal aliens? No, there's no terrorists in this, but we're going to fight over the word terrorist, and then we're going to use the alternative as neighbor. Well, I'll tell you this, an ICE agent, this is really easy, Steve. Do you want a Border Patrol agent, a CBP officer, an 1811 ICE agent, an FBI agent, even, God forbid, or a DEA or an ATF agent living next to you as a neighbor? Or do you want a TDA, MS-13, Mexican Mafia guy living next to you as a neighbor? Which one is a neighbor to you?
Oh, gotta love thy neighbor, so it'd probably have to be the former.
Right, it's so simple. So these guys are out there arguing over this simple kind of term. And lest anyone think otherwise, we are not run by the smartest or the most capable. This is the Attorney General of Minnesota. I got a couple of people. The Axios headline was that they want to shut down things and that there's, administration furious in Minnesota. They're furious, but they're retarded. This is Keith Ellingson. I cannot understand how this man gets up and gives speeches unless they are all unless there's a hand up his rear end, moving his mouth hole for him and making the words, because he's basically retarded on the fly. And this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We're all going to be dumber for this too.
My question is, why? I mean, this is a civilian, this is a Minnesota person, a civilian, a person who is only trying to do legal observing. There's no reason to believe she came there to harm anyone. She wanted to observe. Why wouldn't a joint investigation give the public greater confidence that whatever you feel happened actually is what happened?
Can you translate that? I don't speak whatever that was.
I mean, that sounded like Jacob Fry to a certain extent.
No, Jacob Fry is more articulate, even in Somali.
I think he's trying to make the case that his office needs to be involved in investigating federal agents, even though they were acting and operating under the supremacy clause and would not, ergo, be under the state jurisdiction for their operations. He just wants to insert himself in this because he's a politician and he doesn't care about anyone dying or being hurt or his constituents or anything to that effect. I do like how in the beginning he threw out, well, she didn't go there intending to do anything. Do you think the ICE officer strapped on his body armor and gun belt that day intending, I can't wait to smoke somebody in a vehicle? Things just happen.
I hope it's a mom too. Yeah, I hope it's a mom, and I hope it's a lady. Like, none of these things are real. Anyway, this is the case law that's going to be deciding whether or not Keith Ellison or anyone else like that gets a chance to play with it. Doesn't mean that it's going to stop them from talking about it. So you can see that these talking points have been marched out for law enforcement. For some reason, Philadelphia has decided to get on the map. They're like, you know what? Don't worry about the fact that we have hundreds of people that are staggering around like human zombies that are all drugged out down in Kensington. What we're going to do is we're going to come out and talk tough. We're going to do a censored version of what Jacob Fry, the mayor of Somalia, has to say. So here's Larry Krasner, who is a Soros-backed DA in Philadelphia. I got two from Philadelphia at least he's more articulate than Keith. Equally wrong. And he's also giving these weird hypotheticals. So this is my favorite thing. The FBI agent did this. The guy with the nipples did this the other day on social media. Guys, I'll put it in my feed at some point. The claim was, this looks unjustified. But I mean, if she used the car as a weapon, then that would change everything. And now let me talk about it being unjustified.
Appealing to authority.
Yeah, appeal to my authority, but more importantly, how about I appeal to a TikTok audience of white ladies that cry so they'll buy my crappy thriller books? That was what that guy was doing. This is the same sort of attitude that we see Larry Krasner. If you come commit crimes, and there's no evidence that there was a crime committed, but if you did commit a crime, then we would stop the crime because we're tough. Remember, Democrats are anti-crime. I heard it from Jacob Fry, the mayor of Somalia.
If any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent, is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested. You will stand trial. You will be convicted, whether it's in state or federal court. It's my office prosecuting it. That's how the law works.
That's actually kind of not true.
Can I issue a extremely self-serving comment?
Please.
So he issued a conditional statement that if people went somewhere and engaged in an illegal action, they would then face consequences, and he would met out that consequence for them. Is that a veiled threat against, I don't know, potentially the heads of agencies?
I heard you make a threat very similarly. It's a good way to get fired.
So then that leads me to ask the question, why hasn't he offered to come to my assistance now? Right? Because we seem to be birds of a feather, believing that if you engage in an illegal activity, then there should be some sort of criminal justice response to that.
I don't know the answer. I know he's a better politician than the lady that works with him, who's going to be the sheriff of that. Philadelphia sounds like a lovely place, people, and I don't want to ever go there. I don't know that I've ever spent any time in Philly.
Like the Liberty Bell? Come on.
It's really unfortunate because I can't go see some like really neat American history because the communists have taken it over. So here is a classic communist move. Number one, we're going to make this religious. And I think Jesse Kelly makes the argument very frequently that communists are religious people. It's a secular religion. I've said the same thing about leftists in general, progressives. This is all a moral war. This is, I'm the good guy. We're the good guys. We frame it that way. And therefore, we must say, care about your neighbors. Do good to those around you. Very Christian principles. Making a white lady the Say Your Name campaign, it's not going to work, especially when you have someone who barely can speak English as your sheriff. Now, this lady looks like a crackhead when she's not wearing her uniform, but even in her uniform, she basically sounds like a crackhead. And I'm not just trying to be mean. She's going to do a call and response to like a press conference. You ready?
Send it.
Here we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Rochelle Bilal, the sheriff for the city and county of Philadelphia. And I say her name, Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. This should not have happened, but we're here today. Let know that law enforcement professionals, real ones, not the fake made up ICE, probably Trump's new army to attack citizens of the United States. Did you hear what I said? No law enforcement professional wears a mask. None. None. Those that come into our communities wearing a mask to commit crime, thank God for our district attorney, Larry Krasner, who said he's going to lock them up. And I'm saying now, we are not going to whisk you away for them to hide your identity, because when you do it there, you're getting arrested there. No whisk away for them to hide you. None of that here. None of that here. Law enforcement professionals do not shoot at moving vehicles. I'm not saying fleeing, because she wasn't fleeing. She was getting out of the way. Law enforcement professionals do not stand in front of moving vehicles invoking an action that is illegal. No, we don't. And so we stand here today with all those who stand against the made-up, fake, what you can call ICE, professional law enforcement. I don't call them none of that. I call them made-up, fake, wannabe law enforcement. Because what they do is against not only legal law, but the moral law. So I'm with the DA, and we will work with them. If any of them want to come in this city and commit a crime, you will not be able to hide. Nobody will wish you off. You don't want this smoke.
Oh, you don't want this smoke, and you know that they don't wear masks. Nobody in Philadelphia in law enforcement can ever wear a mask.
Is that against the legal law?
That is against the legal law, brother, in Philadelphia.
She reminds me of the mayor who couldn't spell eagles. So I mean,
real cops do not wear masks. These are definitely not Philadelphia sheriff's deputies not wearing masks.
Law
they don't
enforcement
do that.
Professionals right there who don't do things to invoke illegality.
Listen, if you live in Philadelphia and you think that's a good idea, that's the person that's going to make a call on whether or not they do certain enforcement actions, and you're freaking retarded.
There's a non-zero
if you
probability
listen to me,
that
what are you
dial
doing?
911, she
I'm
arrives.
so scared for you. I'm so scared for you. Let's go to someone who's a little bit more capable. You know, someone who was like a national political figure that had an opportunity to do something real fun. Before we actually play fun people from Minnesota who are going to tell us what's actually going to happen, not the tough bullshit talk that's from the other places. Can we go to the real thing? Let me ask you again. Hit a like over on Rumble. Hit a like over on YouTube. Share it with a friend. Watch us on KyleSerafinShow.com, a.k.a. Spotify. If you are listening, that way you get both. You can easily transition between the two of them. Very easy to do. All right, that's the easy plug there. So we're almost at 20,000 over on YouTube, just for whatever it's worth, which is super fun for me that we're getting there. Okay, do you want to hear how it's really going to go down?
I can't wait.
Let me set up the real conditions here. The conditions are we need to have we need a full investigation, Steve. And we should not do character assassinations of people that we do not know. And don't you worry about the fact that the person who was shot, and this is all sad, by the way, it's absolutely sad that there is a 6-year-old child now that doesn't have a mother who also made a stupid decision. And so her story is weird. And when you read it, and if you read a story and you're like, man, that's not, if you heard a story and you're like, that lady is married to this man. And you'd be like, okay. You'd be like, that lady was married to this man and they were divorced. You'd go, okay. If you hear a story where someone goes, that lady was married to this man, but then he died. And now she's married to this lady. You're like, that's not a story you hear every single day. That's why people are interested in it, because it's unusual. It's an unusual story to think that you were married to a man for a number of years, produced a child, and then you got married to a lady, and then that lady got out of the car while you were about to go fight with the ICE agents, being a legal observer that you're not entitled to, and then you tried to run over an ICE agent and you got shot. That's an interesting story for all people. You go like, wow, you don't hear that every day. I know that because I listen to the news every day. Anyway, Tim Walz is going to tell you, you can't character assassinate her, and we need a real investigation. Wonder if we're going to get that investigation.
They have determined the character of a 37-year-old mom that they didn't even don't know. They've determined that the actions are done. I don't know. I've not used inflammatory terms of what happened. I've asked us to find the answers. The only way we find the answers is a thorough investigation. I don't have a predetermined notion. Yes, I saw the video. Yes, I saw that. But a thorough investigation will see what happened before that. It will take all factors in, and it will come up with a fair and just conclusion. And we will accept that. Very, very difficult for Minnesotans to think in any way this is going to be fair when Kristi Noem was judge, jury, and basically executioner yesterday.
Did he just say that it was going to be fair, but it's not going to be fair?
On DHS Barbie? Okay. All right.
You know what? DHS Barbie actually is right in this one. So give her credit where it's due. Again, we'll sit here and throw balls and strikes or call balls and strikes when we can. You guys want to see what happened beforehand? CNN has unearthed video. I don't know how they unearthed it or where it was buried, but apparently there was a video unearthed, and here is that guy, Anderson Cooper. He's the arbiter of right and wrong. They definitely kind of sneak past the fact that there's more time. They chop this video. They say it's 4 minutes and it's like 13 seconds. But you can see, drops off the wife or other lady who begins filming, which is what we've seen, and then does something wild. I don't know if this was a suicide pact even, actually, from watching this. It makes me actually think it's worse. This could have been a suicide by cop move for all we know.
CNN has obtained some new video. Again, it's grainy and distant, but it shows 4 full minutes leading up to the shooting. It shows Renee Good's maroon Honda Pilot entering from the right there. Then 20 seconds later, someone gets out on the passenger side. We don't know who or why this person leaves the car. We then see her turn and pull perpendicular across the street, seeming to block the way. But as you see here, leaving room for vehicles to pass by her on either side. Finally, there's this new angle of the federal officer who shot her. He arrives, another federal SUV pulls up. As the ICE officer briefly goes back to his car, then he returns, and with another agent grabbing at her door, she starts to move forward. Again, it's hard to see from this angle, followed by 3 gunshots in quick succession. 4 minutes in all from start to finish. But for all the video that may reveal, it says nothing about why Renee Good was where she was or what she was doing there. And it's not all we don't know. Somehow.
There's so many mysteries. If only there was an investigation into it and the Stadies could get it done.
Can I also add that they're setting up a premise that you're casting aspersions on her character because no investigation is going to actually delve into her character. That's completely irrelevant. The only question is whether or not the officer's actions were reasonable, and that is just basically on his perspective. Her character is completely irrelevant to the entire thing.
Yeah, and even her motives are irrelevant. It doesn't matter what she said she was going to do or why she did it. Like, none of those things actually matter. It's what the reasonable officer in the position in front of that hood perceived before he fired the
But we're not
gunshots.
going to get answers about her character. Ergo, the investigation will never be sufficient for the communists.
And amusingly, it's also this thing that Lila Rose pulls up. She's like, we really need to know what happened. And was she trying to escape? It's like, you have no right to escape. There was a guy, a car lunged at him, and he shot her. That's all we have to know. What did he see? When did he see it? What did he think when he saw it? What was his experience as his training? And then was the reaction justifiable or reasonable? That's it. There's no more to it.
And
it's just like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't make it any less tragic. I mean, there's incidents.
Right.
There was one where I believe it was, I don't think it was FBI, but there was a police department executing a search warrant, went to the wrong house. You go in, old lady she's like Kyle Seraphin's spirit animal, right? She's just strapped at her kitchen table early in the morning, and she sees intruders coming into her house. She pulls down, they draw down on her and blast and smoke this 80-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
The question was it reasonable for those officers to shoot her? Well, they believed in good faith. They were at the right house. They saw a weapon pointed at them. There was an imminent threat of death or serious injury to the officer. He took that action.
Yeah.
It's very tragic. But
and all
her
of that
character doesn't mean anything.
You zoom back out and you go like, okay, this is awful because they're at the wrong place. So what sort of failures happened there? The family obviously is going to have some recourse to it. It's the worst thing in the world because we have to outsource this stuff. We have to outsource violence and justice and whatever it is. That's the deal we have. And it's going to be done by human beings, which means it's imperfect. They convict the wrong people on occasion. Our justice system is not great in so much as, but it's better than the alternative, which is that there's a predetermined and like a mob justice, theoretically. Anyway, it's just not good. There's no good answer here. There's no good outcome. And by the way, after someone's dead, it's just like now we're all just pushing pieces around to decide whether or not that person did the right thing in that moment. And you can't second guess it very easily without having put yourself in front of that car. And Steven Crowder did it the other day. And he's like, even instinctively, when they move the car forward and he goes back to do the thing you do, which is if you're trained to shoot, you train to shoot. Here's what's going to actually happen. I'm not a prognosticator. I'll just tell you what's going to happen. The state has no play in this. We already told you yesterday about Nagel, 1890. It's established case law, and the way that this thing works, it turns out the people in Minnesota do too, which is why I know that they're doing a narrative war to have people inflamed for political purposes. There is no justice purpose or justice system purpose that's going to play in. Here is Bob Jacobson. He is the police commissioner for the state of Minnesota, I think. Is that what it is? I think it's the Minnesota police commissioner. I think that's his position. He's going to tell you that nothing's going to happen. Ready? Go.
To file state charges without the cooperation of the FBI.
To be able to file state charges, we would need, again, a full investigation, which would include the opportunity to have been at the crime scene, to have had the opportunity to take a look at all the video and evidence that the FBI would have in their possession. I don't make any prejudgments about what happened yesterday. We can all see what we want to see on the videos and what we have seen in the media. That doesn't mean that none of us, I will not, as a public safety professional, jump to any conclusions as to who is at fault in this. What I will say, though, is that unless we do that thorough investigation, unless we have access to all of that evidence, unless we have access to the agents that were involved in that, to any witnesses, without any of that, we would not be able to put together a quality investigation for any prosecutor to be able to make a determination as to whether or not someone should be charged with a crime.
I'm going to note on this, too, that no one less than Tom Holman yesterday said it would be
Dude, can you translate? I was distracted by the clown that had the hand signals.
The gender ambiguous sign language person there.
What was that? That was a bald lady doing frantic, weird face gesture. I'm not even sure that's a real sign.
The contradiction of a very buttoned up, professional.
I'll do the signing for you.
Public safety officer with that was the only reason today that everybody should just use Spotify if they aren't already on the Kyle Seraphin show. But he's setting up, like, I'm not touching this thing.
I don't do good fake sign language. I have friends that do. I should bring on my friend to do fake sign language every day. Just put him in a little picture-in-picture, and he could just do whatever he does.
Didn't they have a fake sign linguist at the Nelson Mandela funeral who was 6 feet away from every head of state in the world?
Yeah, because unless you're a signer, like, and anybody who has any self-respect is not doing that job. They're just like, I don't want to go up there and make clown faces on TV. I look ridiculous. Closed caption it, people. Stop this. Stop this thing. It's so weird.
We have the technology. It's completely unnecessary.
They're not going to go anywhere with this. There is nowhere to go. There's no federal. The federal jurisdiction is complete. The state didn't have access to even do an investigation. They just told you. Bob Jacobson, he is the commissioner for public safety for the state. He was appointed by Tim, as far as I can tell. It's not case closed. Okay, no state. Larry Krasner's threat, nonsense. It's all fake. And here is Kristi Noem actually doing let's give her credit where it's due. She wasn't wearing a cowboy hat, so I take her even slightly more seriously. She stood up like a grown-up and said, there is no reason for you to be here. By the way, why were the police not keeping away the crowd? Like police do. How many times have you been on a search warrant where you had local PD go in, light it up, and hold a perimeter for you block traffic?
Just about every single time.
Almost every time. In every place. Whenever there's a federal operation that takes place, you get the locals to jump in and they help you out. Because their job is the safety of the public. Your job is whatever the federal mission is. And they are not the same. That's just so easy for people to understand if they actually did their job. Anyway, Kristi Noem actually nailed the mission. So kudos to Border Barbie for hitting this one out of the park. This is a great clip of her.
Yes. A few minutes ago, the head of Minnesota State Investigations Agency said that they had been cut out of the investigation into the fatal shooting in Minneapolis. Can you explain that reversal?
I'd like to know where they've been and why they're not out on the streets investigating all of these people that are harassing and inciting violence on law enforcement officers right now. They're allowing the situation to be volatile. They're not doing their work. They haven't for years, and maybe they should get to work a little bit on the unprecedented fraud that we've seen in Minnesota and in Minneapolis by people that stole from American citizens and diverted funds away from vulnerable people and programs and services that they needed and put it into their own pockets. Minnesota is a train wreck. It is corrupt, and it was under the leadership of Governor Walz and this mayor that they allowed it to happen, and they let criminals and illegals and people abuse programs and steal the money, and now they're allowing violence to go forward on the streets as well.
This also applies to the Minneapolis Police Department, county sheriffs, the federal authorities at this point. They don't want.
I won't put a blanket statement out like those other individuals will. What I would say is I welcome them to come and help us. Come help us make sure that the streets are safe, that laws are enforced, and that we can do the right thing to make sure that American citizens come first. Yes, sir. They have not been cut out. They don't have any jurisdiction in this investigation. Yeah.
Mic drop.
That's it right there. I mean, that's no different than all the people that were screaming about how they needed to have access to the Charlie Kirk footage. Just independent journalists.
Yeah, they need it.
Don't have that. It's not your jurisdiction. You're not entitled to it.
Who the hell are you? It's so simple. It's like, who are you? You are not a federal agent. You're not investigating. This is a federal scene. You have no authority to be here. Thanks for showing up. Really appreciate it.
Other HSI, Homeland Security investigators from Florida or Texas are not going to have access to what went on in Minnesota. And they work for the agency.
So she's making a comment about the danger that is allowing these goofies in. This is my pivot, okay? So we're going to pivot here. We're going to talk about, I think, the narrative war and what it creates and what the foot soldiers look like. And by the way, they are not the scariest people, but they are dangerous. So there's two differentials here. I'll remind you again, if you're not watching, you're going to miss out on some stuff. Some of the stuff is more visual than it is audio because you're going to be able to see stuff. But anyway, if you guys are watching, Rumble, YouTube, like us, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys just joined us, great, awesome. Same thing for X. If you want to be part of the program and support us financially, you can do it on Locals. You can be a free or paid member over there. And then lastly, Spotify is found at KyleSeraphinShow.com. You can search for the Kyle Seraphin Show on Spotify. If you were listening anywhere else, you're missing out on the visuals, and you can swap between them. I don't get any money for telling you about Spotify. I just think they're better. Okay, let me pivot to this little move. This is a lady who's taken it upon herself to police ICE. Okay, ICE are terrorists. if you accept that terrorists are doing things to your neighbors, not sex traffickers and illegal aliens and people who break the law and people that are willing to kill you and would just assume like skin you alive and run your daughter off in somewhere and make money off her. If you assume that they're your neighbors, then you might want to go and use your car and sua sponte, go out there and block ICE and ask other people to also block ICE. I kind of want to get involved in this. I've got a very heavy, diesel F-250 truck that can tow 25,000 pounds. I can throw a tow ratchet over the top of one of these ladies. She says, I've got a bigger car than you. I could flip her car over with like not too much. I've gotten, I'm putting 4-wheel low and just pull her over the top, put her on her side to get her out of the way. I'm kind of interested in hooking up to tow hitches and dragging some of these ladies out of the way. If we're going to play the game of someone's going to go invade, a federal operation, put themselves in serious danger. And I got one that's like a lady being an idiot. The other one is actually super scary. She brings her kid into a federal operation where everyone's wearing body armor and slung rifles. When you do an operation slinging rifles, in my experience, it means you either have like a tactical op going on, there's like a possibility of real danger. So anyway, these are a couple little examples of you've made these people think they're fighting terrorists. You've created this this is the Podesta plan that Alex Jones was talking about for a while, which is somebody gets killed and then you get the army activated. All right, I talked it up too much.
Back up. I'm far enough away. I'm not influencing anything.
That was not what I was trying to back up. Sorry, hold on one second here. We'll go back to the lady.
We can play. My car's bigger than yours. It's ICE! Please help me record! Get behind them if you have a car! If you have a car, please pull behind them. It's ICE! Can you pull behind them? It's ICE! They're trying to kidnap people. Please pull behind them. Please pull behind them and park. Please. Please park behind them. Can you put your car behind them, please? It's ICE.
That's probably enough of that. What do you make of that?
Couple thoughts. This is why the Say Her Name campaign's not going to work in this situation, because she represents that exact demographic, the people who will cut off their own children's genitals to impress their friends at Sunday brunch. They're just
100%.
Not likable people. And I was also reminded when she's asking other people to engage in illegal activity, because that's what that would be, impeding an investigation.
It's solid.
She sounded like Denzel Washington in Training Day at the end when Ethan Hawke is walking off and the people in Compton are like, don't worry, we got this. And then he keeps like screaming like, no, wait, come back, help me. Because she knows she bit off a little more than she can chew.
That's right. Well, listen, and she also probably feels a little bit guilty as a white woman taking action autonomously. This was a little video that was released by one of the Daily Wire reporters. And this is not about the movement. It's not about the lady. It's all about me. It's a LARP where people go, how can I make this thing about me? It's like the old meme of like looking in the mirror, like go out there and make this about yourself. This lady is in tears, feeling bad about her tears as a white lady with privilege. And all of this stuff is like super weird to watch because none of these thoughts would go through my head. If somebody killed a lady that I knew, I'd be like, this woman is dead. Like, how do I help the family? I don't think protesting and candlelight vigils and showing up is the thing that does it for them per se. I'd be like, can we make meals? Can we look after the kid? Or we could go out there and do this performative bullshit, which is what this is.
So, I mean, I'm just walking around kind of just dazed-eyed because I was like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. It feels kind of wrong being here in some way. I don't know why.
And why do you think, yeah.
I don't know. Like, where that stems from. Like, I mean, part of it is being like a white woman that I'm privileged and I have a lot of privilege. So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary when black and brown people have been experiencing this for a long time. This isn't new for them. And so I don't know if that makes any sense in that way.
How did you decide that you should be here? Or are you still figuring that out?
Well, I work like 2 miles from here, so driving by just, I don't, you know, it was like, I'm here. I'm 2 miles. I can stop.
Can you explain what that was to me?
It's kind of hard to cut through the intonement. George Hill threw that word at me. I've been saying it. It's like black pill for Dan Bongino. Intonement. That's the way the uptalk goes. So it's very hard to pay attention. That's that
when everything you say is a
woman
question.
Speak. Everything has to ask, like a question as you go with the uptalk.
Is it me, Steve, or is it when these people don't know the answer to what they're like? I'm just doing this thing, like I'm out here and I'm trying, but I don't know why I'm here. They immediately go to just like the retard talk points, which is like, I have privilege, and so white tears don't matter. Black and brown people have experienced this. What is this? They've experienced people trying to run over cops.
To that, yeah, she has to default to those talking points because we've bastardized the female inclination to be nurturers for generations at this point. She doesn't have babies to actually care about. So these are her babies. And
or maybe she does, and she does crazy things.
Yeah, she preferences people who aren't her babies over her own babies because she feels guilty that she might, have some sort of providential thing that was placed into her where she loves her babies more than other people, and she's been drilled over and over again that is wrong somehow. But ultimately, I can't take her seriously because she didn't give a land acknowledgement before she talked.
She did not give a land acknowledgement. They were standing on that stolen land there, and she didn't even recognize that even a little bit. So that was really offensive to indigenous peoples and peoples of the earth that had been there before. I think the TILF people, the Turtle Island Liberation Front, may come for her.
Black Lotus Edition.
Yeah, the Black Lotus faction could definitely be upset with her for saying that. So she's probably got a lefty. I don't know what do they call it? Like there's going to be a
struggle
fatwa.
session.
There'll be a fatwa for a struggle session in the future. There's another lady that did this even worse. So showing up and crying for no reason and not being sure that why you should cry is definitely bad. It's way scarier to me that you decide to take your 6-year-old into an armed conflict zone. And so this lady is really special, and I'm not actually going to run the entire thing as far as we can run it because it kind of freaks me out that people have lost their minds this much. And it does go to your point that if you've misplaced what your role in the world is, like as a father, you and I both know, like my kids come before any federal duty when I was a law enforcement officer. And I think I told it to my friends, I'm like, if somebody's kidnapped my kid, like the badge goes on the ground and then the black bag operation starts. We called it the black flag protocol. If we have to execute black flag protocol where you spit on your hands and you have to start slitting throats, then so be it. But there's no more, like it's over. Like I'm not confident that I can outsource justice. I hope God gives me strength if that ever happened to me. Because my instinct is going to be protect my family at all costs at every level. And I don't give a shit about legality at that point. This lady doesn't give a shit about her kid and dragged him into a potential armed shoot-off. Like, dudes are wearing body armor. Women are wearing body armor, slung rifles. You guys watch this. Again, another great idea for you to be on a place where you can see things.
Hey, back up.
I'm far enough away. I'm not influencing anything.
Do you live on this street?
I don't, no.
Okay, I need you to get in your...
No, I won't.
Ma'am, I need you to leave.
It's my right to be here.
You need to back up out of the
I
way.
will not.
This is one of our cars as well. You were too close right now. You were interfering.
I'm right here.
Federal
You're going to
investigation.
get out of my face.
You need to
I'm a
back up
public
over
citizen.
here.
No, I won't. Tell me
You need
why
to
I'm
back up
far
this
enough
way.
away from your investigation.
Step beyond our cars.
Don't touch me, please.
Step beyond our cars.
Where's your cars?
Right here.
Where's your cars?
All the way
Oh, that's great.
Keep going.
That's great. Sure. Beyond your cars? 20 feet, right?
See that white car?
I have a 6-year-old right here. I have a 6-year-old right here in my car.
Child in the car?
Oh, yeah,
child
I sure
in danger.
did. Yes, child in danger.
Get your child off of the scene. This is an active police scene.
It's an
This is all on camera
right
now too. Right here.
Yes, I'm wonderful. I'm very glad for
Get
it.
your child out of here.
I can be right here.
Police scene.
I'm happy right here.
Ma'am, listen to me. You have the right to videotape. Okay?
I do. Thank you,
Hang on,
sir.
listen to me right now.
I'm going to listen.
But we have someone that's being detained right here. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have a.
Tell me where you need me to go
Hang on,
exactly.
I need you to stay. Do me a favor.
Yeah, I will.
No car seat. Okay. Do me a favor. You can videotape all you like, but you have to stay. You cannot come past that driveway.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you. Stay at your car though. Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
more than welcome to videotape.
Thank you, sir.
But do me a favor. By state law, we're policemen too. That child is supposed to be in a booster seat. He's not of age.
Oh.
So make sure you put him in a booster
Great.
seat because I'd hate to give you a ticket.
You can give me a ticket. I'd love it.
So she monopolized the time of 3 or 4 law enforcement officers out there in a pretty dangerous situation and is prejudicing her what is her prime directive is filming, getting TikTok videos on behalf of whatever they're doing there, that person rather than her own kids. Look, I've taken my son and we held signs outside of his school when there was a mandate to wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
that was on his behalf because my kid is my preference.
Right.
She's just using her 6-year-old as a prop, as a
Did
purse.
you notice how uncomfortable the female officer or agent
Oh,
was?
yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
wasn't like,
because
go
she
do it.
actually has babies are more important to her.
Well,
right?
it was wild because you could see that hers was not like, follow my instruction. These are my authorities and I'm going to enforce it on you. Like, get out of my crime scene. She was like, what the shit are you doing?
You have babies. What are you doing?
She was incredulous that somebody would do that. And so the question for me has been, how do we end up in that space? And the word is neighbors. And that's why it's in the title. They've pointed out that these people are our neighbors. They have this fake Christian belief that the neighbor, you must do to the neighbor as you would do to yourself. You must be a good neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. These are like communistic. They might as well call them comrades. They're using neighbor in place of comrade in this place because it appeals to people that are women.
Great comparison.
It appeals to the Lila Rhodes. The Lila Rose is going to say, well, I have to be good to my neighbor. So I can frame the argument in terms of neighbors instead of comrades. Then you win. And that is being done here. Watch this. This is a woman in Seattle. I can't tell. I think this is the mayor of Seattle. And they're mad at ICE for taking neighbors.
Yesterday, armed ICE agents in an unmarked vehicle detained 3 North Seattle neighbors at Evergreen Washelli Cemetery. I am furious at the federal government's abuse of power. It is unacceptable to kidnap people who are simply going about their lives. There is no place for this in Seattle. This latest abuse comes on the heels of the murder of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis by federal agents. Renee was a poet, a caring neighbor, and a mother. Someone with a family whose community is now grieving unimaginable loss. These are not abstractions. These are real people, real families, and real harm.
And they're really dumb for doing that. But again, use the word neighbor instead of comrade. And now you see what they've done.
And also put poet ahead of mother because we know what's really important to
Bro,
you.
she was an artist, So I see that. There's another example that if you want to add any color to it, I'll play you another example. This is coming out of Portland. It's the same places where you'd see the worst ideas, but the narrative war for word and being able to structure this is ongoing right now, and it's winning. And I'm going to show you what it results in because it's pretty sketchy too. Any thoughts?
I actually want to go back to the comments you made. I think it's the ultimate example of that, and that is where you're saying, look, my family is my prime directive. My kids are all that matter to me. And that was why it was so abhorrent to you and to me when we watched the Uvalde shooting, where you had law enforcement officers lining up in the hallways, putting Purell in their hands while kids were being executed. And then the story came out afterwards that one of the officers who was responding's wife was one of the teachers. And I have always said since the beginning that the worst person that day, with the exception of the shooter, was the officer that went up to that guy whose wife is in the process of being executed and took his gun away and said, you have a conflict of interest, as opposed to saying, you want to go in 1 or 2, because that's what we're going to do right now. And
dude, if somebody's got my wife at gunpoint or my child at gunpoint in a room, like I'm going in there butt naked with a wheel gun if that's the only option I have. Like I don't give a shit. I'll go in there with a fucking with a baseball. I'm going in. Like that happens next.
And then the mayor of Portland or Seattle, that's how she views a woman who she never had any interaction with, didn't know existed before 2 days ago. And that woman saw illegal aliens in the country with that level of devotion. That's an irreconcilable difference that we have.
Just look at this picture. This is who you're radicalizing. These are the women that have feelings, right? Stop Trump's Gestapo. They've been doing this for a while. We've watched it. I've got some funny old clips. I was actually going through my computer for clips, and I saw that I've got a bunch of old stuff from the same thing was going on in Los Angeles. They're coming after my neighbors. And I didn't realize the neighbors part was so critical. But neighbors equals comrade is the narrative victory right here. And then this guy also tells you the other thing. And I remember listening, I wasn't a big Dan Bongino show listener, but one of the things that he mentions is that the left only cares about power. I think it's a Jesse Kelly point as well. They're not interested in people. They don't care about principles. They care about power. And listen to this guy. He says that this horrible thing has happened. Neighbors have been taken. I need to get out in front of my constituents in my district because it's about power, and you solidify power by going out to the constituents. Not, I need to go and protect my family or be at home with them and see how my kids are feeling about this horrible thing that happened. Nope. This dude straight up, and for all I know, he's just like looking at him, the softness, the way that he looks. He's a man with a beard that doesn't look like a man with a beard. He made beard look like effeminate. This guy sounds effeminate, so he is what he is. But maybe he doesn't have a family, and maybe his constituency has always got but it always does seem to feel like it's about power. So check this out. Again, another neighbor's example.
Sir Dunphy right now. Can you please tell us a little bit about what your reaction is to the news?
I'm absolutely furious and heartbroken right now. I'm needing to stop what I'm doing here and rush out to my district because it was heartbreaking enough to see what's happening in a different city, to know that this was coming to our community, and that one of my neighbors in my district two of my neighbors in my district are now sitting in a hospital bed and hopefully are going to be making it home. But this is not the kind of community that, not the kind of reaction from a federal government that we should be having. This is unacceptable. This is horrible.
Is there any information you can share with our viewers aside from what Council President shared earlier?
All we know is that at this point, we know that.
Steve, all we know is that our neighbors, it's our neighbors, man.
The very beginning of the clip where he's got the shit-eating grin on his face because he's so excited to be on TV right now.
Oh,
this
it's
is
so good. Yeah, this is our
meme.
moment.
Just make this about you right now. Make hay while the sun is shining. We could probably get reelected. Maybe we could be a state delegate next time.
Okay, here's another soft guy. Also took the neighbor's comment to heart. Again, neighbors equals comrades, so you can see the sort of street level, the dangerous communists. And this guy wants to take it a little bit further. He's going to go ahead and issue some sort of veiled threat. This is not a Steve Friend style, you should face justice and live in a prison for the rest of your life. This is, we'd like to go ahead and do some kinetic action. Neighbors.
It's nice if you show up in my neighborhood in the same way that you are unaliving American citizens who pose no threat and abducting people without due process, I will do the same to you. I encourage everyone who sees this video to bear arms and practice your Second Amendment right. It's time to fight fire with fire. Let these fuckers know who has the power.
He spells bear, B-E-A-R.
B-A-R-E.
The queer cowboys think that, and Brokeback Mountain think that guy's gay.
Both of the cowboys from Wyoming and Brokeback, yeah, they are like, that dude has way
too much.
There's way too much frociaggine on that. Did you say bear, B-E-H-R, like the paint?
He doesn't paint. Are you kidding me?
He might paint. He might body paint with his like soft shaved belly. So that guy was making threats and letting you know. My wife was like, he unironically chose to have neon in his background on his wall.
And
I was like,
choker necklace.
Did he have a choker? Hold on, let me go back to this. Hold on, come on.
It's nice if you show up in my neighborhood in the same way that you are unaliving American citizens who pose no
With
super
some
tough.
sort of Gaia
Listen, tough guys
symbol?
come in all flavors. So that tough guy was in that version. Again, it's all about neighbors. It's all about the comrades. It's all about the communism thing. I like it when someone unapologetically says, I'm a leftist. I'm super violent. You want to see what capabilities look like? Let me demonstrate to you my capabilities. I'm going to almost end on this because this is one of the simultaneously most hilariously goofy things. And also these people are seriously dangerous because anybody with a rifle can get off one good shot and kill somebody. Anybody with the plan and the mental like disease to step up and say, I'm going to go and react. Like it doesn't take a lot for an ambush to be effective. Now, in the case of this guy, he's going to get exactly one shot off, you know, Charlie Kirk assassin style, from what I can tell. This is the most uncomfortable clip you guys are going to watch. I did not add any time to this video. As you watch, if you are listening, the dead air is the man acquiring a sight picture. And if you've ever been to an indoor range, the longest indoor range that I've regularly seen, I saw one that was 100 yards in Virginia. It was very expensive. Generally 50 yards is a long indoor range. 25 is pretty common. I'm going to guess this guy was taking shots at 15 yards. Ready? This is going to be, you haven't seen this. This is super uncomfortable. So here we go.
Dear ICE, here's a message from your friendly neighborhood leftist. Not all of us are going to stop at snowballs in the future. So maybe think twice before you just start randomly shooting into vehicles.
And some of us aren't just going to fucking randomly fire into things. Some of us actually know how to aim. So
that was 5 seconds between the shot 1 and shot 2. That was 9 seconds between shot 2 and shot 3. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he had eye pro on while he was giving the statement, but not while he was taking a shot.
He was also using a Chinese optic that was probably like 4x minimum to shoot at 15 yards. Go ahead.
NFI. He and Lila Rose should go shooting.
I'm going to take him shooting. Here's where I shoot. I took this the other day, and it was not for this. It was actually for something we're going to do over on Locals, and I'll give you guys just a day of training things. But I ripped a low-resolution version. This is me shooting at 7-yard lines. It's actually for a totally different project that I've got because I've got a hit piece coming out at me about shooting at 7 yards. This is me shooting at 7 yards. I'm not doing great. This is probably the first time I've shot a carbine, and dude, it's been a while since I've done any training with a carbine. It's been a couple years, so I'm very rusty. But consider a rusty guy who knows how to handle a weapon system. First at 7 yards, and then at 18 or 19 yards, I was like right at just in front of the 20-yard line because that's where my camera was set up. I'll just play it for funsies, and I'll put me on the screen. Here we go. So 7 yards. Okay. Whatever.
But you weren't propped up against a table because you don't know how to aim.
I'm not propped against the table. Here we are at 18 yards, 19, whatever. Okay, that was getting it there. I don't know. I got to shake some dust off, but
you were also respectable enough to have a can on the end, whereas that guy was going.
Because I'm not a jerk. I don't shoot with jerks. I don't shoot indoors without a can on anymore. Anyway, so we got that guy out there telling people that bad things are going to happen. So
good for him.
This is the issue. You start talking about neighbors. You start putting yourself on the moral high ground. You start bringing out some of the dummies.
And we're going to get to the ultimate question that people haven't thought through. Not question, just issue that people keep throwing out there. Both sides. All right, equal opportunity critic on this one. Mm-hmm. Shut up about Civil War. Do you know all the hype and talk about? Look, I know how to aim. Look at me with my iPro. You're big and bad and brave. Civil War looks a whole lot like your wife bleeding out in your front yard.
It looks like this guy stepping up on the news and telling you what's up.
Maaga Jacob Fry.
Sorry, it looks like Mogadishu is what it looks like.
Yes.
Ugly.
Yes.
Nobody knows where it's coming from. Bad
Black
things happen to
Hawk
everybody.
Down, that's exactly what war looks like.
Well, anyway, I just see these people making a narrative victory. I don't think it helps that we've got people in the Trump administration saying that they're terrorists. I don't think that was the move. I'm glad they've walked away from it. There's no federal jurisdiction. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Let them run their mouths. The only danger is you're going to get some of these people, the ICE or terrorist crowd, that come with me, comrade neighbor move. We're going to humanize all the idiots. Not a good sign. And just remember, it doesn't mean that cops are always right. And we know they're not because some cops wore masks. Some people went out there and infringed on your freedoms. We should have just a general skepticism. But I can also tell you that the federal law is pretty clear. And the federal use of policy, federal use of force policy long predates anything like this or any conflict. And you've got an opportunity to understand what it looks like. If you guys want to go read the deadly force policy, go look at yesterday's show. I put it in the notes. You can go read it. You can understand where your danger is. If you pose an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury, then someone may shoot at you. The end. So, that can be your own deadly force policy too. I still live under the same force policy. I don't know if you do that mentally, but that's kind of the line for me.
I'm clear that first round in my weapon has already been fired. It's just up to the recipient of that round if they engage in the activity that's going to require me to deliver the round.
Mm-hmm. All right, Steve, I got one self-serving thing. I'll play it at the end here. It's kind of funny. Do you want to pump what you guys do? I like that you're doing the 5 days a week thing over at AMRAD. So give people where they can follow and what they're doing and what you guys have coming up.
Sure. American Radicals Podcast coming up in a little bit, noontime, rumble.com/AMRADpod over on YouTube as well. Working on getting that at AMRADpod, but for right now, it's the American Radicals Podcast. Also at X at AMRADpod. I'm going to do a primer on not just deadly force policy, but on the use of force continuum, just so people have a more education background when they're going to form their opinion on what went down in Minnesota and other places. And then also did a little bit of a deep dive on one Kash Patel's charitable foundation and found out that they sent $50,000 to foreign entities from donations that people sent them on our backs. So join us over there noontime today.
Okay, at noon. And guys, this one is actually really worth your time, 100%. I think Steve in general does a really good job with what he's doing. This one is one of those things where if you are curious what kind of scumbags got in there and how badly we did not vet the guy we recommended for FBI director. What percentage of the money raised in 2024 went into advertising costs for the foundation?
He spent $750,000 on advertising,
right,
and brought in $2.4 million. So you're talking roughly 30%.
And how much money did they give out?
They gave out to individuals $70,000.
They paid out $70,000 on a $2.1 million donation base?
Yeah, there was a bulk of donations to organizations, but as far as individual recipients, there were 9 of them. It totaled about $70,000. And they asked us to advertise. They asked me to put out a request for $20,000. My own parents put in $20,000 to the charitable foundation.
On top of that, we did the 2023 one here, and you can find it on X, but they brought in $1.3 million and paid out a grand total of $200,000 on that, with about $600,000 or $700,000 in expenses, some of which were, other things. So anyway, that charitable foundation is freaking criminal, whether or not there's actually a criminal statute that hits it right now. Like, I would call it like morally repugnant for what they did. So anyway, check into the AMRAD pod, again, at AMRAD pod. And if you're on YouTube, you can find him at The American Radicals. I was interrupting you earlier because I said what you guys have going on, but you guys is just you now.
It's the royal we, right? It's kind of like the way Dan Bongino speaks.
Speaking of the devil, I got a really funny thing because we had a little animosity. So our palate cleanse going to the weekend is going to be sometimes those receipts come back to bite you in the ass. So, say things you mean and, or don't. But Steve, I appreciate you joining me today, as always. And folks, go follow Steve if you can.
All right, you got it. Have a good weekend.
All right, buddy. Adios. Steve is, he makes this show much more fun. All right, this is also fun. Sometimes it's fun to just dunk on people who do dumb things. So as a final thought to you, it turns out the internet is forever, and we're going to have an unlimited number of these things because the guy did thousands of podcasts and he said thousands of dumb things that he doesn't agree with anymore. So Podcast Dan versus FBI Dan is one of my favorite games. We played it before. I've never played this version thereof. First of all, make sure you guys are liking Rumble, YouTube, X, whatever it is you're watching. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. We'd appreciate that. Go to Spotify if you're listening anywhere else. You'll get a better experience. Subscribe to the channels there, blah, blah, blah. All that is good. Let me give you something fun. Dan versus Dan is my favorite. One of the things that we saw Dan pivot to when he got into the FBI, and it's evidence again that there were bad things happening, is that they started immediately promoting the work of a guy named John Nantz, Nantz. If you guys are on X, you've probably seen John. His basically full-time job is hating Kyle Seraphin. But if you're a longtime fan of the Dan Bongino show, you may remember this. There was a time when Dan knew that this dude, John Nantz, was an FBI mouthpiece doing exactly the worst thing that you can do. He was out there, defending the FBI at all costs. And Dan was like, that's bullshit. You shouldn't be doing that. Like, you are a snake. And he knew exactly why it was happening. For some reason, he lost his way, that Bongino. He's no longer there. But the receipts are forever, and we'll drop it right here. This is just fun, courtesy of the Viva Frey podcast. Really appreciate him pulling this little compilation together. Dan used to defend me, and he knew that people were just being crappy because their job was to say the FBI mouthpiece job. When you're tweeting out the FBI mouthpiece job as the guy at the FBI, it makes us think you're captured. That's why people are mad at you right now.
Now, I wouldn't have given it much of the time of day if I hadn't seen FBI mouthpiece and Wolf Inside the Tent, the guy by the name of John Nantz. Anytime you read a Nantz story, you got to read it through the lens of who's telling Nantz to say this. Well, notice how right in the title, he wants to take a shot at Kyle because he's jealous of Kyle. John Nantz, again, I believe speaking as the FBI mouthpiece himself, says how he goes after Kyle by name. Wolves in the tent. Very cautious of these people. They're a group of dipwads who, I'm telling you, abuse our brand to go and destroy people because these people don't go through proper channels. Kyle used to work for this guy, and I believe this guy's upset because his face isn't on TV talking about FBI scandals he wants to be the face of because he's probably looking for more TV hits. So the fact that Kyle actually had the courage to give up his job because he wasn't going to get the COVID vax and fight for people really bothers this guy because Kyle's getting attention he don't like. So he's the wolf in the tent. Be very careful, these people. Now, I wouldn't have given it much.
It's forever, y'all. That's the funniest thing. And that almost could be Dan Bongino talking about Dan Bongino today, Kash Patel today. And this is the reason why Americans are frustrated with them and why there is a universal outrage on people who just want to hear what's true and just want you to be honest. Just say that you screwed up. Everybody can handle somebody who's a failure. What we can't handle is if you come in and lie to us and say that we're the problem. So we talked about it at the onset with Steve Friend, but calling me a black pillar or calling anyone else a black pillar, whether it be Alex Jones or Nick Fuentes, or it doesn't matter who. If they're just saying things that are true, then that actually should be the red pill from the Matrix. We talked about that last night on the program of the call-in. So go look at that if you guys want to hear a fun discussion. We had a good time last night. I appreciate all of you guys. This weekend is going to be a breather for us, I hope. We'll come back on there. I've got a couple of people I want to start interviewing this year. We don't do an interview every weekend, but I will start getting some of those done. And mostly I'm trying to prep on solidifying where we're staying for the year, and more importantly, what's coming up in Vegas, because we're going to do the SHOT Show thing. And I hate going on the road, people. It actually causes major anxiety for me. So that's coming up soon. We'll see you on the other side of this weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you guys go out and meet your neighbors, and I hope you go do the normal thing, like maybe you have a backyard barbecue if that's if you're in an area that can handle it. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you on Monday morning, whatever that looks like. If you're just waiting at your computer until then, we'll be back then at 0930 Eastern time. God bless you. See you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.